Good morning again, members of the media. Thank you for joining us for our press conference today. We have called this press conference to express our concern about the safety of children at this time amid the chaos in the transport sector and just the general lawlessness that has ensued since the recent occurrences in Kingston and St. Andrew. From our analysis, there is a palpable sense of fear and uncertainty across the corporate area following the brutal murders that have taken place and the chaos that ensued in the public transport sector as a result. Parents, teachers, students are all suspended in terror as some attempt today to resume a normal routine. The call from the minister, Mr. Montague, to remain calm and the assurances from the Prime Minister that there will be swift action, though urbane, we find it to be wholly insufficient as it fails to speak to the public's real concern. Is the chaos over? Am I safe? Are my children safe? The Ministries of National Security and Transport both have to answer some questions very clearly. One, are JUTC bus drivers still under threat? And if they are, what are the special provisions in place to offer students especially a safe and reliable commute between home and school? Secondly, is the public still being advised to travel in vehicles unlicensed for public passengers, understanding that these vehicles many times have no insurance to cover third parties, and in admittedly extreme and chaotic circumstances, they can't assure the safety and protection of life and limb? We also want to know, because as is always the case, violence and crime impact our vulnerable populations most acutely, who is managing this chaos-induced change in fares in the corporate area? From reports we've received, we've seen fare hikes as high as 500% as drivers have inflated the cost to move passengers across Kingston and St. Andrew. Additionally, with heavy police and military presence already spread across the Kingston and St. Andrew area, do the JCF and JDF teams have the capacity to provide more boots on the ground to oversee the major transport centers in the corporate area, namely Halfway Tree, Crossroads, and downtown Kingston, in light of these reports of bomb threats and the continued violent reprisals? If the government did not already abuse the power, in our estimation, to jolt criminals with a state of emergency, in this moment we would recommend its implementation. But it has become a dull instrument, and society at this point is inflamed with uncertainty and fear, and we're not quite clear what the government is prepared to do to stem that. We are fast approaching what could be described as the nadir of public confidence in the state's ability to maintain order and discipline. We extend our condolences to the families that have been affected, and we put on record the need to address public disorder in the transport sector. Last Monday's crash in Montego Bay claimed the lives of 2 drivers and injured students and passengers on the way home. And it underscores a general sense of disorganization and mismanagement in the public transport sector. So we're imploring the government to move quickly in answering these questions, but also to implement the Jamaica Eye network of surveillance cameras island-wide to discourage recklessness under penalty of swift identification, prosecution, and hefty penalties of jail time and fines. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'll take them now.
We have nationwide. Would the state of emergency in this case be an extreme measure? Would you consider it an extreme measure in this particular case?
Well, as I said earlier, if we did not already have it in place and the Minister of National Security were to advise, no problem. As I said earlier, if we didn't already have it in place and the Prime Minister or Governor General were to advise that it should be an immediate and swift response to regain public order and secure these public spaces, it would be appropriate at this time. But it has lost its jolt and its ability to scare and to hit back anybody who thinks that they have the power to, in public spaces, exact these kinds of violent reprisals. But at this time, I don't think it would be of any use.
Speaking with the police yesterday, ECP Bailey in charge of the JCS crime portfolio, he said that the police haven't yet formed a link between the JUTC employee and the incident that led up to the dead taxi man, right? I know there's a sense of public disorder, but are we preempting the police's investigation by calling for enhanced security measures, things like that in situations like this?
Well, to be clear, the enhanced security measures exist. What we're asking is if the police and the JDF at this point have any more resources to deploy in JUTC Transport Center, at the bus stops in Halfway Tree, at the bus stops in Crossroads, at the bus stops in downtown Kingston, which is where children and parents are going to be moving around freely. So we've heard openly the threats, the voice notes going around about people about to shoot up spaces and who is going to exact the reprisal for the lives lost. With those in the space, you have to manage public confidence and the sense of terror that a lot of people feel. And the first and I think most important way to do that is to show them that the state is out and prepared to protect them. So I'm not calling for an SOE in this instance. What I'm asking is if at this point there are any resources at all available to flood these spaces with officers who can manage that public sense of uncertainty and, if necessary, take action to create and maintain order in those public spaces.
Have you spoken to any of your constituents? Have you spoken to stakeholders who could say what's the value lost, what's the productivity lost for over the last 24 to 36 hours based on all this chaos?
Well, I can't give you dollar figures, but I can tell you what has been happening. So I'm a parent with one teenager in school who was sent home early yesterday. So we had to organize to have transportation get to him and back in the rain, which naturally creates its own chaos. But it's teachers who up to this morning were not clear on whether or not school would have been in session. It's the principal who's not clear up to this point if he or she will have to dismiss school early. So parents can prepare to move from work and get their children safely off the streets. And then more importantly, we have communities and populations like persons with disabilities who have to depend on the JUTC to move around because they have those specially built buses. In the absence of those, you have persons who are literally unable to leave their home at all. There are students who got up this morning and their buses, their usual buses to get them to school on time, to work on time, weren't available. And of course, yesterday, with the buses on strike and taxis choosing whether or not they're going to run and what they're going to charge you, left a lot of children stranded on the road. So those things cause for that sense of disorder and dis-ease, and then not knowing if today is going to end the same way it ended yesterday. So the minister has to come out very clearly and tell us, is the threat pacified? If it's not, what should commuters do right now to make use of legal and legitimate opportunities to get across the Kingston and St. Andrew area?
Andre Williams from the Gleaner. Late last night we had a report, at least one report that a child had not returned home. So we are wondering if, from where you stand, if you have reports of that as well, missing children yesterday because of the whole situation.
Well, the YO, and myself included, have not received any reports of missing children. But I do want to make the point that where there is uncertainty about how a child is going to get home, especially in the rain, they are more likely to accept these invitations of drives from strangers to get off the road early and to get out of the inclement weather. And so that's why it is so urgent and important for the government to step in, because nature abhors a vacuum. Where there is no clear way to solve a problem, people will come in with their own solutions. And that is what puts our children at risk. We talk a lot about our ranking on the human trafficking index that continues to fall, and it's moments like these that allow those with unscrupulous intentions to take advantage of children who are literally standing with a question mark at the bus stop about how I'm going to get home. All right, thank you very much, and I appreciate your both coming. I have your